expressed are those of the host, guests, and callers, not necessarily those of News Radio 1040 WHO.
Good morning, friends. Welcome aboard. This is our Friday morning get-together. Mickelson here with you. It is going to be mostly an open eye time today. It's a gorgeous Friday here in Iowa. I hope your crops had enough water to keep them going for another couple of weeks until we get some more water. Congressman Tom Blathe, you travel all over Iowa. And what is the crop conditions out there? Some places there's drought, some places there's plenty of water.
Yeah, primarily the real dry area. It's spotty, but southeast has been the driest. We've actually gotten some great rains here recently, generally across the northern part of the state. So we're looking a lot better. We're going into pollination as far as the corn's concerned, so it's extremely important. We have nice days like today for that. It really helps the crops.
All right, some of the biggest news of the last couple of days, of course, as you were you in Washington to vote on the Holder vote?
I was there. That was out of committee.
Okay.
And I don't serve on that committee. That was government reform and oversight.
So is the censorship, is that just by a committee, or do you have to vote on that?
No, the contempt citation came out of the committee. It's scheduled for a vote on the full House of Representatives next week.
Interesting. So full vote on all of the House. What do you predict?
Well, it'll pass, absolutely. There are negotiations going on as we speak to try and not have to have that vote. But I think it's really interesting that they would claim executive privilege. I mean, this moves this whole issue from just a Justice Department issue right into the White House, and that they're claiming that there was conversations with the president by claiming executive privilege.
There was a real interesting exchange yesterday. The press secretary, Jay Carney, was asked about this, and people were just laughing at him, some of the answers he gave. And then Krauthammer on Fox News was commenting on this. I have a little bit of sound. I want you to respond to this. This is just a fascinating moment in our history.
In terms of the assertion of privilege, it is, as I've said, I think, on a number of occasions already today, absolutely about the principle. It is not something that the president takes lightly. He does it because it is his responsibility as steward of the executive branch to retain the capacity of this administration and every administration going forward to function appropriately and independently.
I'm rather touched by what Jay Carney had said about the need to hold the documents back because of a respect for the separation of powers. This comes 10 days after the administration has just rewritten unilaterally the immigration laws in a way that Obama himself has repeatedly said is a gross attack on the separation of powers itself. So you've got a lot of stuff happening here, as well as intimating that the Attorney General had stopped a program that, by his own words, he hadn't heard about. All of this is rather curious.
Curious, a good word.
I guess curious. Executive privilege was never meant to hide an illegal operation, which Fast and Furious was, gun running into Mexico. And to claim executive privilege is just a stretch beyond what anyone has ever seen. And it obviously shows that there had to be some communications with the president, with Justice Department, for them to claim executive privilege.
The second part of what Krauthammer said, this is a few days after the president has allegedly changed immigration policy unilaterally. Everybody's saying that by executive order.
No, it's not.
Well, so that was the question. How has he changed any policy?
He has given the department a directive saying that this whole class of people, we will use discretion not to prosecute them, not to arrest them.
Is that an order?
It's a directive.
How is that different than an order?
It's not a formal executive order, because I think if they did that, there's always been some discretion, on individual cases when you prosecute folks.
Right.
And that's what he has now expanded, to use this discretion for a whole class of people, 800,000 people, that the president now says, with his discretion, that we're going to let them stay here.
Does that discretion exist in the law?
No.
So he is the chief executive officer of the country.
The Constitution says he's duly bound to uphold the laws, duly enacted laws of the United States.
Well,
it's outrageous.
Well, just a few weeks ago, he said, I think this is what he said.
I swore an oath to uphold the laws on the books. Now, I know some people want me to bypass Congress and change the laws on my own. Believe me, the idea of doing things on my own is very tempting.
Well, so what happened between then and now? Did he have I was going to have a multiple choice credit. Come to Jesus, come to Allah, come to Reverend Wright, come to the great pumpkin in the sky. Who did he come to change his mind there?
David Axelrod, probably his campaign manager. This is all about politics. He has stated many times that he did not have the authority to do exactly what he has done now, as far as this new directive.
Well, Congressman King says he's going to sue him over this. Is the president saying, I'm not going to enforce the law or selectively enforce the law? Is that an impeachable offense, or in what sense can you sue a president, one branch sue another, and for what? I mean, what is the standing to sue, and what's the nature of a lawsuit?
Well, if it can be
King, but
right. And Steve, will take his actions.
He never calls me. I never talk to him. He won't talk to the media.
Right. This I think sets up a very clear confrontation with Congress and with the Constitution. This is something that is far beyond whatever has been expected. Again, on individual cases, in administration, the Justice Department has always been given discretion to, there may be mitigating circumstances on individual cases, but to take a whole class of people now and give a directive to give them, in essence, amnesty.
It creates a class.
Absolutely.
All right. A special class that we're going to exempt from the normal checks and balances of the law.
Right.
Well, all right. So if it comes to a contempt of, going back to the other subject, if it comes to a contempt vote, how will you vote on
I don't think there's any question the president has withheld documents that the Congress has asked for. There is no justification for withholding these documents. You got to remember, Jan, when they originally responded, they said that there was no involvement, anyone, and then they basically admitted that first letter response was a lie. They retracted that, and now they're coming out with, and they will not allow us to find out what actually did happen. And
so
this elevates it with this executive privilege, elevates it to the White House.
Well, all of this means what in great short and long term? Because this is, all this happens in every administration. Somebody does something somebody doesn't like. They have special prosecutors. Then you have ongoing investigations, and then you have the political class dividing up. And then so he's my guy, so I'm going to defend him. He's your guy, so and it's just a never-ending circus of stupidity here. So what are we supposed to make of it out here in the cheap seats?
Well, not since Richard Nixon has executive privilege been used to protect someone in an administration in an illegal activity, which the gun running was.
Okay.
And so this is different. And that's why I think it's just beyond the scope of anything I've seen, except historically going back to Nixon, that he would imply executive privilege for an illegal activity that was going on.
Well, we know what your real motivation is here, Congressman Latham, for going after Holder. Nancy Pelosi told us what your real motivation is. Would you like to know what your real motivation is?
She has never spoken for me before, Jan. So.
I know what your real motivation is.
They're going after Eric Holder because he is supporting measures to overturn these voter suppression initiatives in the states. This is no accident. It is no coincidence. It is a plan on the part of the Republicans.
But the intent, I kind of mangled that up.
All right, so that's just really interesting.
It's unbelievable.
Nancy Pelosi is the former Speaker of the House, now says the real reason you guys are going after Eric Holder is because he is trying to bring to a halt the voter suppression efforts of this administration down in Florida. The voter suppression measures down in Florida is to try to take 180,000 illegals and criminals off the voting rolls.
Right.
That's what she said, implying that this is racism.
It's outrageous. I mean, and to...
Well, that word doesn't mean anything anymore, does it?
No.
We've got to invent another word.
Consider the source here with Nancy Pelosi, but it is...
Well, the source is senior Democratic Party spokesperson. She is not, I won't say credible, but she's not just a person off the street.
Oh, absolutely. But it again goes to the fact that this is all about politics, and it's not about policy or the law of the land.
Yeah.
And that's why this whole thing has risen up, because they think that there is some political advantage to be had by certainly this discretion that they have as far as enforcement for the people who have come into this country illegally. And it's all politics.
You mentioned Nixon a few moments ago. And the idea of race baiting is not exactly a new tactic. I was telling my listeners earlier this week, I was going through some of my archives. I ran across the sound of the Nixon-Kennedy debates. Most people just think there was one debate. There were four debates, and most people have lost track of the last three because the issues were a little more they're more obscure. But this is one of the questions that one of the New York reporters asked of the candidates, and specifically of Kennedy.
Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, Representative Adam Clayton Powell, in the course of his speaking tour in your behalf, is saying, and I quote, "The Ku Klux Klan is riding again in this campaign. If it doesn't stop, all bigots will vote for Nixon, and all right-thinking Christians and Jews will vote for Kennedy rather than be found in the ranks of the Klan-minded." End quotation. Governor Michael DeSalle is saying much the same thing. What I would like to ask Senator Kennedy is, what is the purpose of this sort of thing?
So nothing has changed. And Adam Clayton Powell, he was a corrupt New York politician run out of office, only to be replaced by another corrupt politician who continues to race bait in exactly the same way. So this is just our generation re-experiencing the same crap from the previous generation. And it works.